Hello and welcome back to KXAN Live. Thanks so much for joining us here for our Nick's First Warning Weather segment with meteorologist Nick Bannin. Nick, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Esme, that camera behind you is actually a camera and not just a gray picture.
Yep, and it's extremely foggy.
Yeah, very foggy, and we'll talk about this certainly during our early evening newscast, but we do have a dense fog advisory that lasts from 8 o'clock tonight all the way through tomorrow morning. So this fog ain't going nowhere here for a little bit.
Yeah, and it's been around since the morning. Driving to work today was pretty hard to see in front of me while driving.
Yeah, and it'll be thicker here tonight. This is as the warmer air tries coming in over our relatively cooler ground. We're getting some of that. But as the warmer air eventually takes over, we'll see 70s and sunshine later this week.
I can't wait. And today, our topic of conversation is wintry weather, and we just had a crazy wintry week, weather week, and we also saw snow here in Central Texas.
Yeah, this time last week, were you making a snowman and sledding down the hills? Were you doing that?
I was actually making snowballs, bringing them inside and throwing them at my brothers.
My son actually made some snowballs and put them in a Ziploc bag and then put them in the freezer, and they're still there now. So we're saving the Central Texas snow, even though it's long melted for any of that snow that's still outside. But what we wanted to dig into today is what are the chances that we're done with wintry weather? What are the chances that we're done with freezes in Austin even? And let's remind you, our daytime high temperatures over the last week and a half, we have not had above average highs since back on January 17th, January 16th even, when we had mid-60s. Ever since the 17th and beyond, we've had high temperatures that have been colder than normal. You can even see some highs there in the midst of our wintry weather that did not get out of the 30s. Even today, so far, that high temperature since 7 a.m. of 50, although we're climbing higher than that. Still, we expect that today's high temperatures will be colder than normal. So a lot of people have been asking, are we done with wintry weather yet? Esme, I was at a school visit yesterday in Pflugerville, and they were asking me, could we get any more snow days, Nick? What are the chances of that happening? Well, let's first talk about what we've had so far and what we usually have in winter. We typically have 12 freezes in Austin, say from October to April, although usually they come in December, January, and February. But let's broaden out the averages here to include October. We haven't had any freezes in October, November, or December, though. We had them all basically in January in Austin. But we've had 10 freezes this winter season, and we typically have 12 every winter or every section of cooler months that begin late fall, continue through winter, and technically continue into early spring. So we're 2 behind what we should have before we can usually call it quits as far as freezes go. But we are about 19, 18 days now. I need to do the recalculation away from what is typically our final freeze of the season in Austin. It usually happens mid-February because January is our coldest month. So we typically see our temperatures starting to climb by the end of January and typically on average continuing to climb through February. So our average final freeze in Austin at Camp Mabry is February 15th here, just a little more than 2 weeks away. So if you think about it like that, you think, okay, a little more than 2 weeks away. Are we seeing signs of more cold or are we not? Now, of course, this is not to say that we won't get another freeze after February 15th or even into March. We've had that. But, we're sort of running out of time for seeing at least the early signs of wintry weather making a return. These are the last few winters and technically springs when our last freeze of the colder months have been. Last year, we had already had our final freeze by now. That happened on January 20th. And then we didn't have another freeze until this January. So we were already done with wintry weather by this time last winter. In 2023, our final freeze was February 18th. So that was just 3 days after average, which is the 15th of February. But then in 2022, we had to wait until almost the middle of March for our final freeze in Austin.
Wow.
In 2021, it was a bit close to average, February 20th. And then 2020 had our final freeze in Austin on February 27th. Of course, Esme, we can see freezes later into the year in the hill country, which hangs on to the cold a little bit longer, especially during the nighttime. So we're not forgetting about those of you watching in the hill country. We know that wintry weather can last longer into February, longer into March than it usually does in the Austin metro. But what about the latest freezes ever? If you look at this and sort of think, okay, we'll never freeze after that, just about, right? Then we could go all the way into April with freezes in Austin. Back on April 9th, 1914. Esme, you remember that one?
Nope,
No?
I was not here.
Neither was I. But yes, April 9th in 1914, we had a freeze in Austin. April 2nd in 1924, we had a freeze in Austin. April 1st, 1926, we had a freeze in Austin. So 3 separate years have had freezes in April. Of course, that's not many. These records go back to the late 1800s. But it just goes to show you that, okay, we can't rule it out. And especially right now in late January, it is too early to rule out freezes. But we're seeing some signs of not a lot of cold down the pipeline. And now, Esme, I know you're thinking this. You're wondering about the snow. Okay, we talked about the freezes. What about the latest snows in Austin that have accumulated? Now, there may have been some years where we saw some flakes mixing with the rain, didn't accumulate, so that doesn't count. But what about the latest snow events that have accumulated in Austin? And you could see as late as March 27th, we've had accumulating snow in Austin. That was in 1930, 1/10 of an inch of snow then. March 18th, 1934, 1/3 of an inch of snow. Look at that, March 3rd. In 1965, we had 2 inches of snow.
March 3rd.
Yeah, in 1965, 2 inches. And then we've had some snows in late February as well. But I've done some math, and it's actually in the article, and I want to say it's about only 6 or 7 years since the late 1800s have we had any accumulating snow in Austin after the middle of February.
Down.
So I think it's down toward the bottom there. I was sort of in my snowy feels last night as I was writing the story, and it's super rare that we have any accumulating snow during the second half of February, after February 15th. I think it's only happened 7 times. The statistic of excitement. There it is. It's in bold. And that's why we're missing it, because it's in bold.
Right here?
Only 7 years, yes, since the late 1800s have we had measurable snow in Austin after February 15th. So February 15th, in many ways, is sort of the winter cutoff. We sometimes have freezes after it. In fact, it's happened several times. But we very rarely have snow after February 15th. So that's what we're going with there. Now, you're probably asking, Esme, or I think you're asking, what about this year, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we seeing more snow this year?
Are we seeing more snow this year? Well, look at these high temperatures over the next week, because we are running out of time to get anything wintry in January, because January, the last day of January is this Friday, 31st, Friday the 31st, and then Saturday is the 1st of February. So look at our high temperatures. Of course, you can still get freezes at night, even though you have warm days. But there's plenty of warmth coming over the next week here in Central Texas. And since you were thinking about the nights, here are the nighttime lows over the next week. If 43 is average, only Saturday morning, first day of February, has even average low temperatures. Every other morning of the next week is above average, so no signs of a freeze through next Tuesday being February 4th. So we're through the 4th, not seeing any freezes. What about beyond that? Well, the 4th through the 10th, the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. Warmer than normal for that period too. Now that's that period as a whole, that whole week as a whole. Doesn't mean we can't get a few cold mornings or a couple of cold days within that week and still end up warmer than normal. But it does reduce our chances for wintry weather at the very least, and probably not seeing much in the way of signs of a freeze then too. There have been some computer models suggesting chillier air comes in around the 6th or 7th of February, and we allude to that in the blog. But it may not be cold enough to drop us down to freezing at night or drop us a whole lot during the day to bring us any wintry weather. Because remember now, we're seeing our average high temperatures going up. So even if we had cooler than normal temperatures in that first or second week of February, cooler than normal by then is even as warm as the low 60s, or with nights, in the low 40s. That would still be cooler than normal because our average temperatures are starting to climb. So there's several signs suggesting that, we would be leaning toward not very likely for wintry precipitation. It's just, I think, a little too early to rule out some additional freezes, especially late in February. We could get a few, even if the days are warm, the nights could be cold under clear skies. The latest outlook on the whole month of February, by the way, is warmer than normal also. But this doesn't mean that we can't get some cold snaps here or there. So all this to say, and, it's still too early. We're still in January to rule out an additional freeze or to rule out wintry weather. We can't guarantee either of those are done with for the end of winter. But there's enough signs to suggest that we would be leaning toward being done with wintry precipitation and perhaps maybe a couple more freezes. And that would be about it here. But of course, we'll keep you up to date as we go along. Should we talk storms?
Yeah, although we're not going to have any snow in the forecast, it seems like we're going to have some rain later this week, right?
Yeah, we've already had some drizzle here today. Some people consider that rain, some people don't. Either way, it gets your car wet, and it's worth having a rain jacket for. Here's what we're expecting tonight, and that's just more drizzle, certainly some areas of thick fog, and some periods of very light rain. I do expect that the rain coverage goes up a little bit as we head through the day tomorrow. Not a ton of rain by amount, but I think it's going to be another damp day. And perhaps a little bit more comes out of the clouds tomorrow than what we've had here today. So we'll call it scattered showers, widespread drizzle, and thick fog. And that fog may be with us into the early afternoon, even though the dense fog advisory ends by late morning. Then things get more interesting late Wednesday night ahead of a cold front. We'll start seeing a line of downpours and storms forming and then entering the hill country as early as 9 or 10 at night. This line tries to get itself together during the middle of the night. Still just a little drizzly and showery in the metro. This is midnight, early Thursday morning. But then the line starts to come together a little bit more, 3, 4 in the morning. And then notice it starts to strengthen a little bit with some more of the yellows, oranges, and even red showing up, indicating some heavier rain, some thunderstorms, and even a low chance for a strong or severe storm Thursday morning. And then as we continue through the morning commute here Thursday, as well as school drop-off and bus stop pickup, and it is stormy and wet that Thursday morning. Plan on rain jackets, plan on long lines at school drop-off, because it is going to be a soaker of a start here to Thursday, with some storms around as well as just heavy rain. Then this line of downpours and storms slowly pulls out of the metro, say 10 a.m. or so, into our eastern counties. It's raining though. And then as we get closer to the middle of the day, seeing the heaviest of the rain pulling out of here and just a few leftover showers. And then comes the sunshine, Esme. And that sun's going to push us to near 70 Thursday afternoon. And then we're talking low to mid 70s Friday, this weekend, early next week. It's not even out of the question we could get some upper 70s too. So the warmth is almost upon us. We've got to get through some of the storminess though, some really beneficial rain. We need this, but it could have that negative impact on the Thursday morning commute. I mentioned that low severe weather risk. Large hail and damaging wind would be the primary concern, but the risk as a whole is just a 1 out of 5 for areas near and especially northwest of Austin, late Wednesday night, as early as say 9 or 10, through the pre-dawn hours of Thursday morning. And then for the rest of Thursday, and as I show you the state view, the rest of Thursday morning through about the middle of the day, that risk shifts east as that line of storms moves east, but we're still just looking at a 1 out of 5 severe weather risk. And I don't have the map pulled up here, but I think 1/2 inch to 2 inches of rain should cover us. I know that's a big spread, but sometimes we get those big spreads in rainfall amounts here in Central Texas. A lot of us are going to be around an inch, but some localized higher and lower amounts. This is not going to be a drought-busting rainfall. It may help to improve the drought a little bit in the areas where we see, closer to 2 inches of rain. I think a lot of us will be closer to 1 inch though, but still beneficial rain on the way. It just may slow you down a little bit that Thursday morning.
And on our website, KXAN.com, we have your blog post that you just posted today on Central Texas wintry weather and whether we'll see it later this month or into February. And there's also some graphics that you shared today, as well as those fun little
tidbits of information, we'll call it. Little nuggets to share around the water cooler. And the bottom line is that it is too early to guarantee both that we won't see any more freezes or that we won't see wintry precipitation, but we can tell you where we're leaning as far as some of those extended outlooks go. We can talk very confidently about the next week not having any freezes, which takes us through, February 4th. And then that following week, maybe only a little bit of a temperature dip may not be enough to bring us to freezing. So if we can make it to mid-February without an additional freeze or maybe just one, then at least climatologically speaking or historically speaking, it is much harder to get wintry precipitation during the back half of February. It's only happened 7 times since 1898 in Austin that anything's stuck to the ground at that point. We could get some icing though. That wasn't in our calculations, but same thing. Nights on average are starting to climb as far as those overnight lows. Daytime temperatures on average are starting to climb too. So we're seeing that window of opportunity for additional wintry weather shrinking. Mm-hmm. It's not closed yet, but the window is slowly closing.
Well, I'm sure me and a lot of others are ready to get our Texas weather back.
I don't know, Esme. There were a lot of kids at the school I was at yesterday who really wanted more snow days. They were talking about all the fun they had with making snowmen and also the sledding too. So I think there's still a little bit of an urge here in Central Texas for perhaps one more round of wintry weather. Although wintry weather isn't always snow. Sometimes it's ice, which no one seems to like. No surprises there.
No icemen that you can make out of that.
Exactly. Much harder. It's only the ice skaters that really like that. Yeah. But there are signs pointing to us potentially not having to worry about that here for a little while. Of course, stay with us. As you know, the weather can change in Central Texas, and we'll update you if it does.
And we can expect weather to continue to look like this into tomorrow.
Yes, foggy and gray overnight tonight. And then through much of the day here tomorrow, especially the morning, dense fog. You may want to give yourself some extra time before you head out tomorrow morning because the visibility may be lower. And you certainly don't want to be racing down 35 when you can't see too far in front of you.
Yes. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Nick. We're excited to see what we can talk with you about next week.
Yeah, we'll see. And I'm guessing it'll be the updated February outlook that comes out over the weekend. So we'll probably be talking about the newest information there next Tuesday. So join us then.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks.